Good evening. The Justice Verma panel recommendations are in and have already started heated debates in newsrooms, drawing rooms and government meeting rooms alike. The panel that was appointed to look into punishments for rape after the horrific Delhi gang rape case rejected the popular demand for the death penalty or chemical castration for the offence, recommending a life sentence and advised making a range of offences like stalking and marital rape punishable under law. The panel has also slammed the police and indicted the authorities both for allowing the rape to take place and for mishandling the protests that followed. In a 630-page-odd report, the panel also recommended creation of new offences in the criminal law, which include stalking, disrobing a woman, trafficking, voyeurism and marital rape. These acts and the use of words and gestures which create a threat of a sexual nature could invite jail term for from 3 to 5 years. The panel concluded that existing anti-rape laws were sufficient if they were properly implemented. Interestingly, the demand for reducing the age bar for juvenile offenders has not found favour with the panel, which has cited the Convention on Rights of Child that disagrees with capital punishment or life sentence for those below 18 years of age. But perhaps the most significant recommendation, and what some say is the most sterling contribution of the Verma Commission, is that it has virtually drawn up a Bill of Rights for women by framing sexual assaults against women in a larger socio-political-legal context and thereby providing a framework with almost a 360-degree view to address the complex problem at several levels. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight on The Big Picture, we discuss the Justice Verma Commission recommendations as best we can in our allotted half an hour. We will ask our panelists whether the Commission should have taken more time to draw up the suggestions, whether the lack of cooperation from most DGPs is a cause for concern, and finally, whether they think that there is any hope of seriously implementing the recommendations at the ground level. Joining me tonight will be Justice R.S. Sodhi in just a bit. Also joining me tonight in the studio is Navaz Kotwal, Project Coordinator for Police Reforms with the Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative. Also joining me today is Satvik Verma, Senior Advocate in the Supreme Court, also a well-known columnist. Many thanks, Navaz and Satvik, for joining me today. Let me start with Satvik, if I could. Satvik, there are many reactions to the Commission report. In fact, opinion split right down the middle, with some people saying that there is a comprehensive roadmap that is just the beginning of the long march towards a more sensitive, more equal society, while others have not been so kind. They've described the recommendation as something that states the obvious, states the painfully obvious, with little or no chance of successful implementation. Which side of the divide would you say you're on?
Thanks, Athar. I think anyone who's saying or is criticizing this recommendation or the report of this committee is probably being a little cynical about it. So I think my obvious judgment is to side with the recommendations in the report. I think, we can't, and none of us can really question any of the member of the panel and their commitment towards reform. But more on the substantive aspect, I think the fact that they've come out with such comprehensive recommendations in a period of 30 days is laudable. Number two, they've really put down a roadmap, so no one can really throw up their hands and say, we don't really know a process and, by which to implement. They have really identified what the problems are, what are the causes for their problems. For example, they've talked about the fact that there's a failure of the entire governance system. They've highlighted that there has been a failure in the administration of the Juvenile Justice Act, and whatever little I haven't been able to read the entire report, but whatever little I've read of it, I can tell you they've really put down specific roadmaps, which is very, very helpful and effective in the implementation.
Right.
Now there are certain practical difficulties that will come up, and I'm sure you'll discuss those in the half an hour that we debate this. But I do fall on the side of saying laudable task, absolutely commendable that they've done it in 29 days, and I think that they've also been able to keep up the pressure and the angst that existed on the roads and come out, and now the ball is in the government's court.
Right, Satvik, fair point. We take that point. I want to go to Navaz now. Navaz, first reactions on the report. I know you want to speak about the police reforms bit that he's spoken about. He's spoken about the need for police reforms, the need for AFSPA to be reviewed. Your first reactions on the report?
I think that initially the committee, people's reactions have been the committee has exceeded its mandate, and it has police reforms forms a big chapter in the committee's report. Now, at the face of it, it does look that, yes, the committee has exceeded its mandate, but I still think that it has not exceeded its mandate, because for any of the laws to work, for any of the reform to happen, or for greater safety and security for women, if there is no police reform, then safety for women, safety for children, safety for anyone is never going to be a possibility. So I think the committee has, in its wisdom, looked at other areas, but very essential for the larger picture.
Also, a big point of concern, at least for me, Navaz, was the fact that the authorities, the government, the police especially, the Director General level of the police, and Justice Verma has talked about it, didn't really bother to respond to the committee's call for discussions, also for suggestions. This, I think, illustrates a very sad state of affairs, apathetic, if I could call it that, as well. Now, Justice Verma has recommended action against such DGPs, but I would be surprised if they were implemented. After all, as you know, not coming up with the opinions is hardly a sin. But does that bother you? Is that a point for concern?
I don't think so, because there's nothing new really. Because if DGPs of states were really concerned about safety, security, if they were really concerned about the law and order and crime prevention mandate which they have a duty to uphold, right, then with or without a Verma committee, they would be doing it, and they won't have to wait for a horrific rape incident like this to happen. So that they haven't done it for so long, and there was this callousness towards the Verma committee is not surprising, it's not new.
But it's worrying. That's the point I'm trying to make here. Also joining us right now is Justice R.S. Sodhi, former Justice of the Supreme Court. Many thanks, sir, for joining us on The Big Picture. I want to get very quickly your first reactions on the report. Your fellow panelists are Navaz, Kotwal and Satvik Verma. Go ahead, sir.
See, my first reaction to this report is that I find nothing new in it, except for raising the bar of some sentences. It's just I think it's a damp squib. It has said nothing new, and the law commissions have already dwelled on the whole thing. I'm just surprised why the government had to appoint Verma Commission when we had the law commission.
Right. So obviously you're on the side of the people who say that this is not doing nothing much, but it's just stating the painfully obvious, and we've known this for a while now. So let me ask you this: the other side, of course, people do say that this particular report has made concrete recommendation in respect of electoral reforms, police reforms, measures to deal with extrajudicial authorities like khap panchayats, child sexual abuse, trafficking in women, stalking, cyber stalking, what have you. Also, Justice Verma, very laudably people say, did not shirk from addressing what will likely prove to be contentious subjects, subjects like the AFSPA, for example, or police reforms, for example. Now, in that sense, Mr. Justice Sodhi, do you think that this could perhaps be at least a watershed in mindsets of, say, the authorities and the police, and also the society as a whole, at the way we look at crime against women? Let me also tell you that the Home Ministry, the Ministry of Home Affairs, has made it clear that they are very upset with the Verma panel, including because they've included these issues and they feel that they've exceeded their brief. Your thoughts on that, sir?
See, as far as the exceeding of brief is concerned, and touching on various aspects of our social life is concerned, it may have exceeded its brief, no doubt. But however, I think let's not run down Verma Commission also. It has very mindfully gone into various aspects of our social life which need very, very serious attention, and also it has gone into aspects of reforms which are overdue, but then maybe this was the only forum it had.
Right. I've also been joined right now. In just a bit, we actually have been joined by Balvinder, Brar, former member, Delhi Commission for Women, and also senior advocate in the Supreme Court. Many thanks, ma'am, for joining us on The Big Picture. I've already gotten first reactions from my three guests on the particular report, the Justice Verma Commission report. I want your reactions on it. And do you think, which side of the divide are you on? It's split down the middle. People say that this is just stating the painfully obvious. The other people say it's laudable, and they've done something that should have been done a long time ago.
Well, I would like to start by saying, whenever new law is formed, one has to be very balanced. A balanced approach has to be taken for formation of any law. Taking one particular incident into mind and being emotional, you cannot frame laws, because those laws will stay for hundreds of years to come. And this law has been there for hundreds of years. So therefore, one has to be balanced about it. And what Honorable Justice Verma has done, and Honorable Justice Sheila Seth has done, and the former Solicitor General of India, three responsible people of India have sat over it. They have tried to take a balanced approach by not recommending a death sentence. I feel, my personal opinion is that if death sentence was to be allowed, then the reaction of the rapist would be to eliminate the person so that the evidence cannot come forward.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned the rejection of the death sentence, public demand,
for this reason, because then the victim would also lose her life.
Right.
There's a great chance.
Absolutely. I want to go quickly across to Satvik and then I want to come to Navaz on this particular point. Satvik, what do you think of the rejection of the demand for death penalty for rapists? Also, the Justice Verma panel has very clearly said that it is against, changing the age from 18 to 16 for juvenile offenders. Your thoughts on that?
Athar, I have multiple responses. I think just to pick up from the discussion we are having, I think we need to go back to the terms of reference. The terms of reference to the Justice Verma Committee was on the amendments that are required to the criminal laws of the country for cases of aggravated sexual assault. I think those who are saying that the committee may have exceeded the brief may have a legitimate point. But I think, I forget, I think it's page 440, Justice Verma himself acknowledges in the report that they have had to look at certain other provisions which were mandatory for them to do because they are so intertwined with the criminal laws of this country. So while they may have exceeded the brief, which might make its implementation slightly challenging, there is an acknowledgement on why that has happened. That's my first response. Right. I think the second response that I do have is that the committee comes out with a report, and this report is not binding. These are recommendations. It is for the government to now determine what amendments they need to make. Therefore, some recommendations may be accepted, some may not be accepted, and in having discussions we should bear that in mind. Specifically to your two questions, Athar, my personal view is that there is a need to relook at the age of juveniles under the Juvenile Justice Act. We have specific provisions under the Indian Penal Code that also talks about offences below 7, offences below 12, which are not treated as offences. And it was in 2000 when the age moved up from 16 to 18. Now I know that the argument cuts both ways. Personally, even if we don't amend the age, I do think that we need to make exception for heinous crimes that some of the countries make. I was listening to one of the panelists of the committee talk about why they did not bring down the age, because they said that there is social science to prove that the mental faculties are developing. In which case, and that I have no reason to disbelieve that, but I do think we need to make exceptions in that case. Right. Even if we don't bring down the age for certain crimes that are heinous. Now, your last question about the death penalty. Look, I think it's the Supreme Court, and it's a coincidence. The Supreme Court, the day Kasab was hung, had come out with a new judgment which was relooking the Bachchan Singh case and relooking the death penalty in the rarest of rare cases. And I'm sure that the committee would have been aware of the fact that the entire debate of death penalty was probably being re-examined by the Supreme Court. And I'm just guessing that they were mindful of that and therefore did not award the death penalty specific to rape cases.
Right, Satvik, point taken. I'll take a small break right now. I want to get Nawaz's views on the same thing. Don't go anywhere. Big Picture takes a break right now. Lots more to come on the other side. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Big Picture. We, of course, discussing the Justice Verma Commission panel, the report, the recommendation that they've given. Of course, opinion split right down the middle. Navaz Kotwal is still with me. Navaz, your thoughts on the fact that they rejected lowering the age from 18 to 16, also rejected the death penalty. Thoughts?
On the death penalty, I think the way the debate is going is that as nations are civilized, you want fewer and fewer offences of death penalty, and you want to move away or literally abolish the death penalty. I think that's the debate which is going, and you would support it because you're not really baying for blood in this case. In terms of lowering the age of juveniles, yeah. I would, to some extent, I would say I would agree with Satvik when he says that yes, for heinous crimes, for aggravated offences, probably there has to be some responsibility that needs to be fixed. So in that case, I do think that yes, in a case like this, definitely, because we have been seeing that over the last decade, there has been a dramatic increase in the number of crimes committed by juveniles. So probably there could be some thinking that could go on. Maybe not an immediate amendment in the law, but at least some thoughts and discussions and debates which could be generated, which then probably come up with some amendments in law if needed.
Right. But in the Brar, where do you stand on the death penalty and the case for lowering the age from 18 to 16?
Well, death penalty, as my co-panelist has suggested, all over the world, they want to do away with it.
Trying to get away with it from capital punishment.
From it. But the other thing is human rights, because human rights have become, people have started talking about human rights more so than they were talking about them, say, 20 years back or 30 years back. But human rights of criminals like these, whether or not there's a question mark, whether they need to be protected as well as the human rights of those who are good people, good citizens of a country. Or those who have violated all laws, whether their human rights have to be protected as well. So
you say make a difference there, make a definition there, right?
There ought to be some kind of, at least a thought and change in law, I feel.
And on the lowering of the age?
Lowering of the age, I think, yes, that is true because they are developing at that age. And in fact, Supreme Court has gone to the extent of when there is doubt about the age, till the age of 21 years also, remission has been sort of given to them, and they have been sent to juvenile homes.
Right.
But I personally feel that for heinous crimes like murder, dacoity, rape, wherever there is punishment of life, such crimes should be taken out of the purview of the Juvenile Justice Act.
Right. I want to go to Justice R.S. Sodhi on this particular point. Sir, Justice Verma, of course, also mentioned that the juvenile justice system in the country has failed us miserably. Would you agree with Justice Verma there? Have we really, has our juvenile justice system really let us down?
You see, the juvenile justice system has let us down to this extent that our juveniles have not been re-established, rehabilitated. And see, remember one thing, it's not the crime that you're really hurting, it is the question, is the person a juvenile when he's 18 or is he a juvenile when he's 16, 17 or so? Once you arrive at the conclusion that he is juvenile at the age of 18, then irrespective of what he commits, he gets the protection of the Juvenile Act. No doubt, a heinous crime is a crime which raises fickles, but that does not mean that a juvenile ceases to be a juvenile because the crime has become serious. The duty of the state becomes all the more onerous to ensure that a juvenile who is committing such crimes is taken care of, more sensitivity, and given all the possible care to ensure that he becomes a respectable and a worthy citizen of this country. He has to be brought back into the society.
Right.
That is all what a juvenile is all about.
Right. I want to get a quick reaction from Satvik. Very briefly, Satvik, on the same thing. Do you think the juvenile justice system needs a thorough relook? Has it let us down? I want to go back to Justice Sodhi with a new question. But first, Satvik, with your reaction on the juvenile justice system.
Athar, I completely agree with Justice Sodhi. I think that, it's the age at the time of the offence, and a person, regardless of the crime, will get the benefit of the Juvenile Justice Act if he's below 18. The point that I was trying to highlight was that rather than quickly, because there is a debate that the age which had been increased in 2000 post India's ratification of the UNRC Convention on Rights of Children, we should not quickly rush to reduce that age from 18 back to 16. And hence the point that I was making was that even if we do not reduce the age, it's perhaps time for us to look at certain types of offences under which the juveniles don't have a protection, like some of the other countries do that have also ratified the UN Convention. But I think I completely agree with what Justice Sodhi is saying. The entire juvenile justice system, Athar, is based on the reformative theory of punishment. And the purpose of that is to help and try and rehabilitate these children back into the mainstream of society. And I think Justice Verma Committee report very astutely notes that there has been a failure in the administration of the Juvenile Justice Act, and that failure rests not only with the state, but with schools, with parents, with counsellors, with the caretakers, with the reformation homes. He talks about this particular reformatory home in Haryana where some of the ladies, some of the children were made to do manual labour. So I think it is time for us to look at a larger picture, not just at the Juvenile Justice Act, but also at the entire reformative theory, and what steps and what measures can the state take to make sure. The one place that I have a slight reservation, Athar, just really quickly, the reservation I have is where the committee report has said that because the state has failed, it's perhaps time for the judiciary to take over even the administration of the Juvenile Justice Act. I'm not sure where I come out on that and how effective that might be.
Satvik, I'm glad that you mentioned the failure of governance. I want to quickly go across to Justice Sodhi, then I'll come to Navaz Kotwal. The panel, sir, is of the opinion that the failure of governance is the root cause for sexual crime. Now, by submitting its report in 29 days, the overwhelming opinion right now is that the panel has done its job, in fact, exceedingly well. Justice Verma has also said that the report came so swiftly because the panel wants the government to present the report in the next session, which is the budget session of Parliament. Kamal Nath, the Parliamentary Affairs Minister, has said in Davos that the government will bring in a bill next session. Ball firmly in the government's court right now. Thoughts, Justice Sodhi?
The government is bound to consider this report, and the government has also made a pledge to the people of the country that it is going to bring about necessary changes in the law wherever it's required. And Verma Commission is one such recommendation which will be considered in all seriousness. And as far as the Parliament is concerned, I think it is serious about the law and order in this country, and especially the welfare and security of women. We all are. They are all ours. Women are part of us, our mothers, our daughters, our sisters. We just can't neglect them.
Right. Justice Sodhi, I want to come to Navaz Kotwal on this. Navaz, like Justice Sodhi said, that the government wants to do something about it. They seem to be serious about it. But has the Justice Verma panel, by submitting the report in 29 days, put the ball firmly in the government's court? And can they, do you think, can they give a good enough response that the people of the country right now want?
I think whilst a sexual assault law might even become a reality, if you would look at some of the other recommendations that that the committee has provided, I don't think that would be implemented. Like Justice Sodhi said, that there has been a law commission, and there have been several reports of the law commission which have said just what Justice Verma has said. In terms of police reform, and I'd like to talk about that, in terms of police reform, there have been 103 different commissions that have sat on the issue, debated on the issue, and for over in 3 decades, they have come up with these 103 reports. So if you're really looking, if you're saying that a roadmap has been laid down. This roadmap was laid down in 79, in 81, in 90, in 2000, in 2006 with the Sori Sorabji committee coming up with the Model Police Act, in 2006 with the Prakash Singh judgment in the police reforms case. So a roadmap for everything is available.
Right.
What is lacking is the political will. And till the political will is there, till the public pressure is there, it's not going to happen.
Right. Would you agree with Navaz there?
I entirely agree with her. The political will is the most essential thing, because look at the women bill. Where is it hanging? In this time and day, so many, 65 years of independence have gone in. And why are they thinking? And I sincerely feel that even our lady parliamentarians, they are not sincere about the bill.
Do you actually believe that?
I believe that, because then their monopoly would be lowered.
Right. That's something to ponder upon.
Yes,
of course.
it is to ponder upon.
That's something to ponder upon.
They are actually not sure about it. They do not really want it also.
That is something to ponder upon. Satvik, very quickly to you and then very quickly to Navaz. Where do we go from here? Satvik, we have a very little time left. Where do we go from here, and what are the problems you foresee in taking these recommendations to their logical conclusion? Like Navaz mentioned, implementation has always been the problem. What is going to be different now? If at all, anything.
I think, Athar, that's a Athar, I think you raise a very interesting point, because I think the ball is squarely in the government's court. I think the recommendations, I believe that even if they are not new, what the recommendations have done is that they have been able to put all of the recommendations in one place, which is staring us all in the face. So we don't have any excuses to know what the roadmap is. There are going to be some implementation challenges. Some of what the committee, Justice Verma Committee, has recommended would also require would require more money. There's going to be issues on where the money is going to come from. But my last statement would be to say that I think that women's security is going to be an important issue in the upcoming elections, and the political parties can no longer ignore this one side or the other.
Right. Navaz, Kotwal, wrap this up for us. What are the foreseeable problems you see? You mentioned implementation has always been a problem, but what do you really see as the crux of the problem? You said political will. What else can we expect so that at least we know how to maneuver around it?
The police themselves will be another problem, because if this is implemented and police reform begins to happen, then the nexus between the police and the politician, the police and the mafia, the police and everything every wrong that is there in the country will there would be some stop to that. So I think the police, after the politician, the police is an equally big player in this resistance to reform. So, but what I think right now, since after a very long time, we've got this kind of public debate, we've got this kind of public pressure which has mounted. And if this pressure is kept alive, I think something would come about. I'm not very hopeful, but
Let's see, let's hope for the best. Absolutely. That's all the time we have. I must stop you there, Navaz. I must thank all my guests before I sign off. Satvik, Verma, many thanks for joining us on The Big Picture. Justice Sodhi, Balvinder, Brar, as well as Navaz, Kotwal, many thanks for all of you, for joining me on The Big Picture. Key takeaways are many, but I'll just mention two things. Political will and the police might themselves be a problem. That's something we have to watch out for. But yes, 29 days, Justice Verma Commission submitted its report. Now it's up to the politicians and the parliament to actually do what they should have done a long, long time ago. Athar Khan saying goodbye, good night, and thank you for watching The Big Picture.